Hello and welcome to December 2023's AMA and the last AMA of the year. Here are the questions that my patrons asked for this month. If you'd like to ask a question for one of these AMAs, please consider supporting me over on my Patreon. The first round of questions comes from Aquasun, first of which is, as an artist, how would you define an anime art style? This is a bit of a tougher one as anime does cover a lot of different ground. And there's not really a one-size-fits-all look, but I will try to describe what I think of as like the quote-unquote core look of anime, where it's like the more common approach. I'd say some of the key aspects that are pretty common these days are cell shading, big eyes, and small noses. In terms of the eyes, I noticed that a big approach tends to be by having sort of two different ways or two different lines to render the eye, where there's a thicker line on top for like the lashes and such, and then a thinner line on the bottom. It contrasts with how Western styles tend to have pretty closed eyes, where the shape is one continuous shape like a circle. Meanwhile, a lot of anime eyes have quote-unquote open eyes, where the eye whites aren't cut off by a hard line, if that makes sense. Anime quote-unquote styles also tend to have a bit more same-face syndrome going on due to the nature of how anime and manga is produced, which I wouldn't necessarily say is always a bad thing, but to each their own. I feel another good place to look is the hair, where anime styles tend to render more of the individual bangs or strands, while Western styles tend to kind of clump things together a bit more or have more simplistic shapes to them. Notably, I feel like I don't see a lot of pure black outlines either in anime like I see in Western cartoons. It tends to be very dark brown or like blue that they use, at least on promotional stuff. Compared to cartoons, Western styles that tend to be on... that's talking about the thickness of the lines, where anime styles tend to have thinner lines, while Western styles have thicker lines. I'm also not exactly sure how to describe it, but it has a softer look than Western styles, which is probably due to the line weight. Hopefully that answers the question. Next question, if someone commits a crime but then suffered a head injury that results in them having no memory of it and otherwise thinking like an entirely different person, should they still be held culpable? I'd say yeah. I mean, if that turned out to be a viable defense, anybody would start to fake amnesia, which would likely eventually lead to it not counting anyway and being changed, so. Next question, you win a lottery that gives you the chance to have any fictional story you want adapted into another medium, no matter how obscure. What work and what medium do you pick? I looked through my list of stuff I've done comics on for inspiration, just because these types of questions tend to make me blank. And after thinking of a few, I think I'll go with Earthbound as an anime. I feel like if done right, it would be a really charming little show, or even like maybe a movie. Nothing too overly long, but just going over the adventure. Next question, do you consider Christmas more of a religious holiday or a secular one? I'd say secular because despite the blatant Christ in the name of it, the holiday has never been presented as overly religious in my personal experience, just from what I've seen. Or at the very least, anytime I did see Jesus imagery, it was at my grandmother's house, who always had Jesus around. So I don't think little me made the connection that, like, it was his birthday. It was just like, oh, grandma always has Jesus stuff around, so this is just a grandma thing. And the last question from Aquasun is, what's your favorite Christmas movie and or Christmas episode? I feel like I don't really have a traditional one that I watch, but after thinking of a few options, so to speak, they came to mind. Like some of the Detective Conan Christmas cases, Home Alone, Charlie Brown Christmas, the original Grinch cartoon. Though hilariously, I think the Christmas movie that I watched the most, or was the most into for an extended period when I was a child, was the live action Grinch for some reason. I look back and I really don't get why, as it has a lot of gross out humor, which I tend to really not like. But I think Child Me just found the design and Cindy Lou to be very cute and charming, and I remember her little song the most, so yeah. The next set of questions comes from Hannah Page, first of which is, would you rather get exactly what was on your wish list or something outside of it that was incredibly thoughtful? I'd probably go with something outside of the wish list, just because one of my favorite gifts I ever got was Dunkaroos, which sounds so silly, but I loved it because I had joked with the person who gave it to me that I'm not too picky with gifts, and like I could just get Dunkaroos and I'd be happy, which they remembered months later. So next question. Winter is upon us, and that means the biting cold is here. Hot cocoa or coffee? I'm going to go with hot cocoa 100% because I've tried coffee a handful of times, and I just never really like it. So that's just my choice right there. I've tried, but I can't do it. Closest is like coffee tasting things that aren't coffee. You know, like there's a tiny bit of the taste, but never full coffee. Next question. You ever go skiing? Once or twice in gym class as a child, but I hate it. The feeling of not controlling my feet, like to a certain degree, terrifies me, as does slipping. The next question. Do you believe we have the power to go to parallel universes, i.e. the Mandela effect? I'm gonna go with no, just because I feel like we're already figuring out this universe, so we don't really need to think about jumping the gun to try and figure out multiple. Next question. Have you heard about the hit MMO RPG Final Fantasy XIV now boasting an expanded free trial up to level 70, including the Stormblood expansion with no limits on playtime? No, sounds niche. The next batch of questions, and the last batch, comes from Angel Princess. First of which is, how much snow do you gotta deal with for winter? Typically quite a bit. Always good to have a shovel around. Next question, do you have a favorite poutine place? If so, what toppings do you like to add? I actually might not be too sure. Both me and my roommate have slowly been trying a bunch of poutines from different places, and there are quite a few good ones, but we haven't tried everything, so don't really have enough info for a top pick yet. That said, I don't tend to add too much to the top, just because it's already quite heavy, so adding stuff kind of just makes it more heavy. I think at most a little bit of bacon, but even then. Next question. What do you think of the festivity atmosphere of the holidays? Fun or stressful? I mostly shift towards fun, but it can definitely be stressful with places being extra busy, crowded, and then of course money for gifts, gas to travel, hotels if you need them, and then basic costs on top of all of that. Though I'm unsure if it's fair to count that against the holidays, because that's just kind of a buildup of other things throughout the year and stuff, you know. And the last question for this batch, as well as for the month, is, do you loot for after Christmas sales? Not really, no. I don't like crowds in general, much less sale-hungry crowds. I could do without rude people pushing me around, and most of the time, there's nothing I really need so badly that I'd put up with that. And that was the last question, so we'll switch on over to the end screen here. You can see my lovely patrons scrolling on by with their NPCs, as well as a few facts. If you're interested in asking a question or any of the other rewards that come along with supporting me, check out the link to my Patreon in the description. Thank you so much for everyone who asked a question, not only this month, but for the year, as we're coming up in the end of 2023 here. The support really does mean a whole lot to me. It also means a lot when people watch and just kind of enjoy stuff. And yeah, until next month, bye!